All right, YouTube. Evan Benton, Dogg from Air, back in the saddle again with a video I've been wanting to make for a long time, but I've had writer's block about it. Thankfully, we're still a year later talking about the same garbage. So, of course, I'm going to keep yammering on about COVID-19 here. And for this video, I want you to channel your inner armchair general. We're going to talk about strategy here. So big picture, what is the purpose of war? Okay, the purpose of war is to defeat your enemy, to dominate your enemy, to have power over your enemy. Okay, the purpose of war is not to defeat your enemy with swords, to defeat your enemy with guns, to defeat your enemy with tanks, or even to defeat your enemy with germ warfare. The goal of war is simply to defeat the enemy. Okay, and that doesn't even mean to kill your enemy. That's an important point. If you control your enemy, you win. And sometimes it's more beneficial to control your enemy, to have someone you can push around, than it is to even kill someone. So think about that when we're discussing all these points. We have a saying, to bring a knife to a gunfight. Okay, so that's actually warfare. All right, to convince your opponent to bring a knife to a fight for which you have brought a gun is very good strategy. And so I'm going to go and read some our old favorite Sun Tzu, the often quoted Chinese guy. All right, this is from Sun Tzu. When one is capable, give the appearance of being incapable. When one is active, give the appearance of being inactive. When one is near, give the appearance of being far. When one is far, give the appearance of being near. When one's opponents are greedy for advantage, tempt them. When one's opponents are in chaos, seize them. When one's opponents are secure, prepare for them. When one's opponents are strong, evade them. When one's opponents are angry, aggravate them. When one's opponents are humble, make them arrogant. When one's opponents are at ease, make them weary. When one's opponents are friendly to each other, divide them. Attack them when they are unprepared. Come forth when they are not expecting you to do so. Herein lies the victoriousness of the strategist, which cannot be divulged beforehand. And I can't remember the translator here, but this is from the U.S. Naval Institute, and this is an article about how the Chinese actually study this stuff and put it into practice, unlike us. I'm going to put this in the description, this article, and I'm also going to put a link to the Chinese translation, if you're into that sort of thing. So down here, you'll find part 6 from the first section, which is laying plans. You'll find all this stuff in Chinese and then a different translation here if you like. Okay, so what can we say about that? Just to reiterate, the big picture, war is not won by bullets or guns. It is won by controlling the flow of information, making your opponent go where you want him to go. So for an example, I'm going to talk about tanks now. Okay, so let's say we are fighting each other with tanks, and the same applies to any kind of thing, but just for an easy unit. Okay, say your opponent has 10 tanks and you have 5 tanks. How are you going to win? All right, question. So this represents your opponent's tanks, all right, moving forward down the battlefield. This little pen is your tanks, all right? Now you can see just from that they're not going to win. Oh, it's harder than it looks. Okay, so the way that you're going to do this, 10 against 1 is the 10 is always going to win, okay? So basically the way you're going to beat 10 is you're going to come around to the side and you're going to put 5 against his 1, and you're just going to mow him down like that. And there's different terms for that. Outflanking your enemy, where you go around the side. enfilade, where you're shooting them down, crossing the T in naval terminology, refuse flank, lots of different ways to do that. Basically, we're talking about getting a numerical advantage over your enemy. Okay, so 10 against 5, who wins? If we do 10 and you got 5, you're going to take out 5 of his. He's going to be left with 10. And he's going to go and steal your gold or whatever. But obviously, when we're both moving like this, if you're faster and you can go around and outflank him like that, then that's fine. But if you're moving and he's moving, then it's probably not going to work. Or potentially you could come around like this, and then he could come around like that, right? So the better way to do this, and this is why I just read that Sun Tzu part, is you don't move, okay? You get him to come along, and you get him to go like this, right? And then you can enfilade him, right? You're 5 against his 1, 5 against 1, 5 against 1, 5 against 1, 5 against 1, like that, okay? And you can think about different ways you can do this too, okay? Maybe there's like a minefield that makes him have to come towards you single file. Maybe you position yourself at the end of a canyon or something. Or maybe you've convinced him that the real enemy is over here, okay? So instead of coming down and shooting him, focusing his cannons against you, he's going to turn and go against the fake enemy or something, and then that's going to allow you to come up, okay? So that's rulers and pens of combat. Other ways you can defeat your enemy before he even shows up: sabotage. You can destroy the repair places where the tanks are repaired. You can destroy crucial components. Okay, wars are won and lost by ball bearing factories. And think about this. Okay, if a tank requires gasoline, imagine we're not 5 on 10, but we're 5 against 100, okay? If an army has 100 tanks, but it only has enough gasoline for 5 tanks, then it only has 5 tanks, okay? So you just get to thinking creatively about this. This is what real combat is. This is what real warfare is. It's not, a pitched battle where it's saying I've got a sword and you've got a sword and we're going to be whoever is the prettiest sword fighter wins, right? It's not target shooting. There's not rules like that, okay? And you've got to start thinking like that in modern warfare. So my next visual example here, great article here, a lot of great photos. The inflatable dummy tanks of battlefields, 1918 through 1945. And this is why we're talking about tanks as the example. What use is an inflatable dummy tank in a very real war? A lot, if the enemy believes that it's real. Okay, so that's the video right there. I rest my case, all right? But look at this photo here. So inflatable dummy tanks and trunks set up near the Rhine River Valley. Attention to detail was critical. So, yeah, if I'm in an airplane looking at these, that looks like real tanks to me. But the cool thing is, look, they took bulldozers to make tracks behind them, so it looks like they had all pulled in here, right? And there's shells, artillery. They've got, they've got their support trucks. I'm sure these are the actual support trucks that so what's happening here is this is some American Army unit during World War II that actually brought around these inflatable tanks and other things to the battlefield. And so this is a ton of really cool photos. Just go through and check out this on your own. So this is a point I wanted to make too. The Ghost Army, as it was called, would usually impersonate a specific division. Okay, so that is very, very important. You're not just dressing up as tanks. You're dressing up as specific tanks, right? Because the general, the enemy, if he's worth his salt, has dossiers on all your big generals. They know how they act and react, and you're actually going to want to impersonate a specific general, right? And so on and so forth, these specific details, because they're expecting a person to act a certain way, and if he doesn't, they're going to wonder why. But anyway, just a lot of great photos here. Oh, this is the classic one. This is COVID-19. Giving it away, though. Yes. So that brings up a very interesting point to me. The soldier must go where the enemy is. If you're a soldier, you don't have a choice. You don't get to choose where the battlefield is, okay? So for me, talking about COVID-19, it's, for some people are going to think he's really interested in COVID-19, okay? And that's not it at all. I am making videos about COVID-19 because this is the bullshit that they're using, and I'm trying to fight it. So imagine a soldier standing watch on a hill. A normie, if I may, might look up at that soldier and say, he really likes that hill, right? Or he really likes the view from that hill. But what's of course going on, to anyone who's paying attention, is he is looking at something. He's expecting something, and that is why he is there. That is why he is occupying that position. So if it helps, we're really just talking about tanks and hills with this stuff, okay? And if you don't have enough tanks to occupy a certain hill over here that you're worried about the enemy coming up to, maybe put a bunch of inflatable tanks on that hill, and the enemy will avoid it if he thinks it's enough of a threat. So on to COVID-19. As far as anyone can tell, 40% of the deaths from COVID-19 in the United States were caused by Governor Cuomo making a policy decision to isolate people who I guess tested positive in nursing homes. Okay, 40% of the deaths were caused by him and perhaps Gretchen Whitmer and the California fellow whose name escapes me. Okay, but it's a policy decision. It wasn't caused by any particular virus. It was caused by people in nursing homes not having good training or payment, to do the things that they would need to do for these people who were inevitably sick and elderly anyway. The next largest cause of the deaths that were labeled COVID were ventilators. And this is going to be a hard thing to suss out. We're not going to know about this, I don't think, for years to come. But because I work in healthcare and I'm talking to doctors and nurses every day, and I have been for a year, I've been talking to respiratory therapists, respiratory technicians every day. They've been telling us, the ventilators are killing people. Now, it was a policy decision by hospital administrators that forced the frontline staff, as we're calling them, to use the ventilators, okay? So one reason a doctor told me is that they didn't have enough viral filters for the BiPAP machines. And a BiPAP machine is like a CPAP machine. It's a thing that goes over your mouth and nose like a CPAP machine and blows air into your lungs to keep your airway open, right? That's a much more, we think, we know that's a much more effective way of dealing with whatever's going on with the COVID here. And she was told that they didn't have enough viral filters for the BiPAP machines, and so they had to use ventilators, which supposedly did have, or presumably had, the viral filters. So doctors were so afraid that they would be infected by the breath coming out of these sick patients, or positive patients, and they didn't have enough isolation space for them, which means a lot of different things, keeping them anyway. They didn't have enough, the famous PPE, to be protected, and so instead of responding appropriately, they put them on ventilators, because a ventilator basically filters the air that comes out of a patient's lungs. And if you're on a ventilator, you're in bad shape anyway. Ventilators are really a last-ditch effort measure. So more to be said on that, technical things, but That's the number 2 cause of death for people in the COVID in America. All right, ventilators, caused by doctors being afraid that they would get sick, and hospital administrators just not even going to go there right now. Then, of course, we have all of these unrelated deaths classified as COVID. And if it's a made-up illness and you write down that it's COVID, it is COVID. Okay, we can't argue with that. But the reason that they did that apparently is that the hospitals were paid $39,000 per COVID death. That's the number that's been bandied around about the internet. Okay, so the point I want to make about these 3 causes of death, those are all germ warfare. No germs required. Killed people, okay? We killed people by fooling them into acting inappropriately, and they walked into their own graves or were pushed. Blah blah blah. Okay, now the second thing to think about with the COVID is there is a real phenomenon apparently going on. Okay, it's very small numbers of dead people, and they're all elderly and obese, etc., etc. But under this fog of war, there is a real phenomenon that we are going to be saddled with, for the period of this grand solar minimum, it looks like. All right. Now, that real phenomenon, whatever it is preventable. We know, and we knew at the very beginning that it was preventable, okay? It's preventable by things such as hydroxychloroquine, vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc, and on and on and on. We knew this from the beginning, but the president even said that this was effective, and yet that was all pushed under the rug, and that killed people. So again, people are still dying because knowledge of effective treatment was suppressed. That is information warfare, which again is germ warfare. No germs required. Now we can quibble a little bit over, is this just warfare or is this germ warfare? Look, I'm going to tell you it's germ warfare because they say it's germ warfare, right? If a guy builds a bunch of tanks and he decides he's going to engage in tank warfare, and he comes and knocks on your door and you don't have any tanks and he takes over your house, it's tank warfare. Just because you don't have any tanks doesn't mean it's not tank warfare. Okay, it's not this like takes two to tango kind of thing. You don't need to consent to your opponent in order to be a victim of warfare. You don't need to consent to lose. That's the point. Okay, and just as an aside, this is the whole thing that confuses people. This is why people don't understand that we're at war right now, is because I didn't consent. I don't think I'm at war. I just want to go to work and I want to come home and watch Netflix. Okay? Sorry. All right, so finally with COVID, we have the jab, as we like to call it, okay? And this is nothing more than a classic trap, okay? So we have our enemy combatants, and we've been, lobbing dummy shells at them for days and months. We've been dropping pamphlets. The Statue of Liberty is kaput, kind of thing, for months, okay? And they are demoralized and they're scared. And someone comes along and says, "That way, go that way." And then they go that way, and then there's a machine gunner's nest. Go in there and and they all get blown to smithereens. Okay, classic maneuver. So I haven't talked a lot about the jab yet, and specifically what's going on, and I probably won't because it's just, Lord have mercy on you if you were that stupid to get that in you. If you know someone who got it, I'll just go further and I'll say all those jabbies are germ warfare, okay? They are all information warfare, going back to Pasteur, going back to Jenner. None of them do what they're supposed to do. They all make you sick. None of them prevent illnesses. It's questionable whether any of those illnesses, just like COVID-19, are communicable. Okay, but that's another fascinating story to get into. I'm not going to get into it right now. Just for the trolls who don't think I'm hard enough on the jabbies, I am hard on the jabbies. I do not. I think anyone who gets one is a moron. Okay, and they're a fool. They've been fooled. They're a victim. Okay, they're a loser. They've lost the germ warfare if you get one of these things. So I mean, a lot of doctors are smart. These are designed. Information warfare is designed to fool smart people. Okay, tricks are designed to fool smart people. They're not designed to fool dummies. So COVID-19 is a trick that's designed to fool smart people, doctors, professionals, and that's what has happened. And people just can't even believe it because, but my doctor, right? Sorry, that's what this video is about. So, in closing, then, what's the problem with deception? Right? What is the problem? What is the problem with lying in warfare? Okay. What is the problem with bringing an inflatable tank to a tank fight, as it were? Okay. So the benefit of deception as a means of combat is that it's cheap. You can build like 10 fake tanks for the cost of one real tank. The risk is that fake tanks have no effectiveness in actual combat. Okay, so you can build 10 fake tanks for the price of one real tank, but with one real tank you can mow down hundreds of fake tanks. Right? There's no way for a fake weapon to fight a real weapon in the actual combat sense. Right? It should be clear. But again, the benefit of a real weapon then is not only can you fight with it, but you can deceive with it. So you can use your real tank as a shock and awe measure. You can go in and threaten people. You can go in and deceive people. You can say, well, I'm going to put my submarine over on this hill, or I'm going to put my tank over on this hill, and they're going to say, oh, there's a tank on that hill. Well, let's go to this other hill, and then on that other hill, you've got your other 9 tanks, right? So you can. Real weapons are useful for actually killing people, and they're also useful for pretending to kill people. Whereas fake weapons are only useful for pretending to kill people. So that is a big, big distinction. But again, fake weapons are cheaper. That's what it comes down to. And not only are they cheaper money-wise, but they're cheaper to operate. So it takes way less man hours to operate one of these things, way less training, I would say. The point is that like a single PSYOP soldier can operate like 100 or more fake Facebook accounts. Okay, so it's much easier. It's a force multiplier. What we're talking about here is force multipliers, right? Information warfare and germ warfare for sure. Okay, and we're looking at an enemy here which is seriously outnumbered. Right, the bad guys, the powers that should not be, are seriously outnumbered, and this is the whole thing, that they're trying to trick us. Okay, so they're trying to tell us that by the 4th of July, 70% of America is gonna have the jab. No freaking way, right? I mean, even like saying that Biden got the majority of the votes, right? No freaking way. It's all bluster, right? There's like 35%, I'm just guessing or estimating, people in the United States who are putting up with this garbage. The rest of us are afraid because we don't realize that we are the majority, okay? And this is the whole point. And they have been doing this for years, and it's really, really working. It is very effective, but there are very few of these bad guys, right? So it's all force multiplier, all right? And of course, a bioweapon, by its nature, is an extremely effective force multiplier. And any of these weapons of mass destruction, if they really do what they say on the tin, are a fantastic force multiplier. Put my pen down. One vial of goo is going to take out the entire enemy army. That's a massive, massive force multiplier, right? A man-portable backpack Davy Crockett nuke. That's an amazing force multiplier. But what I think is that, and I've said this before, there is no bioweapon. COVID-19 is not real. There is a real, phenomenon, a space weather phenomenon that's killed tens of thousands of people who have all been elderly and malnourished in certain ways, who are sick to begin with, in other words. But this is what I'm saying with this video is they have played their card. It is the medical martial law card, and now we see that it is based on a fake pandemic, which if you had told me 5 years ago, I would not have believed you. I would say that's insane. There's no way they could pull that off, and yet they're doing it right before our eyes. Okay. So the big thing that I'm saying though is that they don't have the capability. There is no real bioweapon. That's the point that I'm trying to make with this video. And I can't prove that, okay? But through my analysis of the whole strategy of the thing, what I'm saying is that if they had it, they would have used it, all right? Because it's it's a big claim, but as I've said before, it's a lot. If you can do a lot more with a real bioweapon than you can with a fake bioweapon, I guess that's my point. So that's about it. This has been Evan Benton of Dogg for Mayor, up to over 100 subscribers now as of this video. So thank you very much to everyone who's shared my video. And please comment below, especially if you disagree with me. I'd love to hear your opinions and your sources. Don't forget those. But thank you very much. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.